Juicy, so juicy. A nice crust was able to form in the oven. It passes the bin test. It's delicious. The crust that was able to form, I'm impressed. Also, the amount of time it took to cook, I'm definitely impressed. All right, y'all, so we are making brisket in the oven. I know if you look through YouTube, there's tons and tons and tons of recipes. And if you look online, there's also a ton of recipes. So guess what? I looked through maybe about 1 million recipes and I grabbed bits and pieces of them all and I came up with the simplest, easiest recipe for smoked flavored brisket in the oven, okay? It's gonna be delicious. It's gonna be nice and buttery. It's gonna have a good texture, good pull. It's gonna be heaven. It's gonna be heaven. So I hope y'all enjoy this process. All right. So this is my brisket. It is a whopping 18 pounds. We're about to trim this. It's USDA choice, the best money could buy right now. This is vacuum sealed, so I made a little hole and I'm cutting it this way because I'm gonna wanna pull this brisket straight out so that the juices can stay in the package as much as possible. It's better if you do this cold. When the fat is cold, you'll be able to cut through it better. So the bottom of my brisket looks okay. I am going to cut some of this skin off. Make sure you have a sharp knife. We have a lot of fat here, so I'm gonna cut this fat off. I wanna leave as little fat as possible on the bottom of my brisket. All right, now we're gonna do the top side. Ooh, that's a big boy. There's a lot of fat under here. Now, whenever you traditionally trim your brisket for a smoker, you don't want any little sharp flaps. You don't want anything that can stick out too much for the heat. But we're doing this in the oven. It's gonna be a very controlled environment, a very controlled temperature. I'm not gonna round off my brisket like you normally would. Keeping that 1/4 inch of fat on top is gonna allow the meat to stay moist throughout the cook. Remember, this is gonna be a pretty long cook. I'm estimating about 45 minutes to an hour per pound. All right, so as you can see, I'm not necessarily the best at trimming my brisket, but I am not too worried about this exposed skin because remember, this brisket's going in the oven and it will be covered with foil for majority of the cook. So I'm not worried. As long as it's able to render properly, we should be good. All right, and there we go. Look at that. Here we go. Those are all the fat trimmings. I estimate there's about a good 3 to 4 pounds here. All right, so now that our brisket is fully trimmed up, we are going to get our baking dish ready. We're gonna cut some onion, about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, and we're just gonna layer the bottom of this with entire rings of onion. Then we're gonna add 2 things to the tray, beef broth and liquid smoke. Now I know liquid smoke is very controversial. Some people don't like to use it. Some people swear by it. We're just gonna use a little bit of it just to mimic a little bit of the smokiness that you would get from a traditional brisket on the smoker. And there you have it. This should be enough. We just need this so that the brisket doesn't sit directly on this. I don't want it to get too hot. Plus, I do not want my brisket to sit directly on the liquid either. All right, so this is a liquid smoke I'm using mesquite flavored smoke. We're gonna play it safe because this liquid smoke can be pretty strong. I'd rather the smoke flavor to be underwhelming than overwhelming and overpowering. You know what, we're gonna go with 1.5 ounces. And we're gonna put some beef broth in it. We don't wanna put too much. We don't wanna cover the onion. All right, set this aside for a little bit. All right, so now that our baking tray is prepped, we're going to season our meat. I'm using 2 binders. Usually people use something simple like a mustard or Worcestershire sauce. Some people just use water, or some people just don't use no binder at all. I'm gonna use both Worcestershire sauce and mustard. Then we will season with 3 things. Your traditional salt and pepper, and I'm gonna add garlic. It's gonna be about equal parts salt and pepper to half part garlic. And I'm using just dehydrated minced garlic. Here we go. All right, so a little bit of Worcestershire sauce and mustard. If you're not a mustard fan, it's okay. This is not gonna overpower this at all. We're gonna rub the bottom fully, get it everywhere on the sides. This is what's gonna be used so that our seasoning can bind. So this is a quick little tip. It's okay to rub your binder. You will not, however, rub your seasoning. I know it's called a dry rub, but you're not gonna rub it. You're just gonna pat it. I'm using coarse salt. It's gonna work best. It's gonna give you a nice little crust in the oven. Same thing with our pepper. And lastly, our garlic. We're gonna give this a good little pat. Now we're gonna flip it. We're gonna repeat the process now on this side. Now that our brisket is seasoned, we're gonna lay it in our baking tray. Goodness, there you go. Snug like a bug in a rug. All right, the brisket has been seasoned. It is ready. The last thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna cover it with foil. We're gonna cover it tight. I'm gonna put 2 half pieces and then 2 more half pieces. I wanna cover it really tight. I wanna keep it sealed. I'm gonna put it in the oven at 300 degrees. That's a little higher than your traditional smoking temperature, but it's okay. We're not smoking this. This is in the oven. We're gonna leave it covered maybe about 3/4 of the way, 75%, 80% of the cook. So I'm estimating this to be at minimum a 12-hour cook. So maybe about 10 hours fully covered. There, maybe the last hour to 2 hours, I may uncover it. We're gonna be checking on our meat every 2 hours. We're gonna be checking the internal temperature and also just seeing how it's looking, how it feels, the jiggle that it may have. We're also gonna be looking to see if our fat cap on top is rendering and how it's coming along. Oh, God's sake. All right, that's all for now. We will check back in 2 hours. It has been 4 hours and we're about to check this brisket. It was pretty early and I kind of forgot to record the 2-hour mark check. So, yeah. Alrighty. Well, let's probe this. Beautiful, 140 internal temperature. I love it. All right, so it's only been 4 hours. I'm not gonna quite uncover it yet. Whenever I stuck the meat thermometer in there, it was a little tough. It wasn't smooth like butter, of course. It's only been 4 hours. I was happy with the tenderness. It did not feel raw at all. Thermometer went in pretty smooth. Not necessarily as smooth as butter, but maybe like into some ice cream, yeah. My brisket's been in the oven for going on 8 hours. Just about now. It smells delicious. It smells so good. I'm about to check the temperature. We're gonna do another temperature check on this. Depending how tender it is when I probe it, I may take it out and uncover it. The first 4 hours, if you remember, we ran the temperature at 300. The second 4 hours, I actually bumped it up to 325. So it was 300 for 4 hours, then 325 for 4 hours, and we're coming up on the 8-hour mark. We're gonna probe it for temperature. We're looking for 165 to 180. That's a lot, that's a big range, but that's kind of what we're looking for, right? Depending on the temperature, that'll tell us what we're gonna do. Wow, all right, this baby's done. All right, y'all, I am very surprised at what just happened. I stuck the thermometer in, it slid in like butter, like butter. Also, I was looking for anywhere from 160 to possibly 180. My brisket reached 200 already, which is pretty much the final temperature that I wanted to get to. I'm surprised I got there in such a short amount of time. I'm gonna pull it out. We're gonna uncover it. We're gonna take a look at it. Now, I haven't seen how it looks, but I'm thinking I'm gonna uncover it, and then I'm going to pretty much just put it back in the oven at a lower temperature for maybe an hour or two, just to give me a nice harder crust. My goodness, it's like I'm unwrapping a Christmas present. I'm so excited. Wow. It has reached the desired temperature. As you can see, the brisket has released a lot of liquid. There is about 1/4 of an inch liquid in this tray at the beginning of the bake. There's an amazing wobble. I love that wobble. Look at that. All right, my brisket's looking great. I'm excited. This is what I'm gonna do now. I'm going to remove some of the liquid and I'm gonna store it in a container for later use because those juices are liquid gold. I don't wanna throw them away. I don't. I'm gonna put this back in the oven uncovered. I'm gonna lower the temperature to about 250 for, I'm just gonna let it be in there for about 1 to 2 hours just to harden the top a little bit. Because I kept it covered the whole time, no real crust formed. So you can, when you poke the top, you can tell that the fat has fully rendered. It's like melting off. Along with that fat is also going our seasoning, right? So I'm gonna just uncover it, put it back in the oven so that it can get hard a little bit and so that the seasoning doesn't just fall straight off. So I decided I do not want to drain this because it's gonna take me too long. I just have another dish. I'm gonna put it on a wire rack. I'm just gonna transfer this into this one. I will put a little bit of the liquid back in. I don't want it to get overly dry. All right, back in the oven for 2 hours, this time uncovered. Here we go. All right, so the 2 hours are up. Oh, wow, that looks great. Let me take this bad boy out. This looks great, it smells great. Look at this, y'all. Nice, bouncy jiggle. All righty, we're about to cut into this. Wow, cut in smooth like butter. And look at that, y'all. Juicy, so juicy. There's a flat, there's a point, incredibly juicy. Those extra 2 hours really help to form this crust. A nice crust was able to form in the oven, not coming off beautifully. All right, let's take a little cut. Beautiful. This cut's a little thicker than what you normally like, but it's all right. All right, so the piece that I cut is pretty thick, but even being a thick piece, look at that, it passes the bend test. Let's also see how well this pulls apart. Look at that. Just comes apart. Beautiful. Tastes great. Oh my God. It's delicious. The crust that was able to form, I'm impressed. Also, the amount of time it took to cook, I'm definitely impressed. This took about 10 hours, 8 covered, 2 uncovered. The trimmed brisket was probably about 15.5 to 16 pounds. I'm impressed on how long it took. I think for next time, if I would change anything at all to the recipe, I would add a little bit more liquid smoke. You can taste it. You can definitely taste it, but you can smell it more than you can taste it. I'm not sure if it's the particular brand or maybe just the particular batch that I got. I've heard, mixed reviews about liquid smoke. But if I were to do it again, I would probably add about 2 to 2.5 ounces of liquid smoke versus the 1.5 that I did. Besides that, I wouldn't really change much to this recipe. I do not find it to be dry at all. Try out this recipe, let me know what you think. Make whatever changes you'd like. Let me know what changes I should make. I'd appreciate that. Cooking's all about trying things out, experimenting, making changes, alterations to recipes till you find something that you really, really like. I really like this brisket. I don't know if I really, really like this brisket. So I'm open to making changes to my recipe. Thank y'all for joining me on another episode of Cooking with Ciro. Really appreciate it. Stay tuned because eventually, hopefully in a few weeks, I'm gonna be smoking a brisket. So I'm very excited. So that was all. Like this video, share this video, subscribe if you haven't. And guess what? If you didn't like this video, I'm gonna make another video. Go and like that video.